Hi everyone, welcome back. Kelly from Kelly Som. We're in lot number 3. All right, so we are going to Spain. Love Spain. All right, so we are going to talk about a really unique superstar in Spain. His name is Raul Perez. He calls the Green Spain, Galicia, his home, and specifically the region of Bierzo. He specializes in growing mencía in this particular bottling and does a stellar job of it. So there's quite a few stories behind this production in general and the story of the man behind the winery. So Raul Perez is, gosh, his reputation precedes him, to say the least. He's such a special human being for a couple reasons. Well, he believes in pioneering, at least pioneering the region from a standpoint that's unapologetic, and he came to the forefront of popularity for not the bottling that's going to be in the club membership, but a bottling called Sketch, which is essentially an Albarino that is aged underwater, basically. So it's submerged underwater, and barnacles grow on it, and then, you know, after X amount of time they pull it up, it's ready, you know, they clean it off, they label it, and the very limited production goes to market. That's Sketch, but we're not going to talk more about that today. We're going to talk about the Ultreia St, Jacques, which is essentially if you could imagine mencía, which is the indigenous varietal in Bierzo, it's such a delightful dark fruit, yet delicate. I think like dark plum. You also get some berry notes to it. I always go back to those like subtle herbaceous notes, but they're here too, you know. And you get this, you get a mineral on the palate that's a little bit, honestly, you know what? It's like if you could imagine mencía meets Village level Burgundy, that's what this is, except for, of course, we're in Spain. So this is mencía that's sourced Village style from the area, the best plots blended together from a broader, you know, kind of, you know, area called Valtuille. And it's a delightful bottling. So the Ultreia St. Jacques is a little homage to the pilgrim to Santiago de Compostela, and pilgrims, as we know, would come all over the world to make the El Camino, the religious, you know, trek to Santiago de Compostela. And Ultreia is kind of just like something that they would, you know, just like blurt out to encourage each other. It kind of means to like keep on going, like move forward, you know. It's like Ultreia just means like kind of like onward, basically. So that is an ancient phrase that has been heard, you know, I mean, as old as Santiago de Compostela has been a destination. So that pilgrimage happens to actually go through, there's a lot of different trails all throughout Europe that lead to Santiago de Compostela. One of those popular paths actually comes right through the vineyards that Raul Perez farms and makes these beautiful wines from. The vintage that's going to be in your bottling is the 2018 Saint Jacques, but think of that as like a Village level mencía is the best way to think about it. So the other background story about Raul Perez is that he, when he was up and coming and gaining notoriety for the quality of his wines and his dedication to the area, he also had a family tragedy that I mean, it will forever shape his life. He, you know, a lot of people think that he was just eccentric for growing a very long, like, caveman beard, but the story behind it is a little bit, is quite tragic, actually. The reason he stopped shaving is because he lost his niece in the vineyard, and actually more specifically in the production area. And so what happened, and it's unfortunately more common than you would think, especially in the old world. And not to say it could happen anywhere in the world. It has nothing to do with the old world, but it's just like the mentality is a little more kind of less, it's like maybe less OSHA regulated, because, from like an American perspective, we think about all these rules and regulations that keep people safe in these facilities that could be dangerous with large fermentation vessels. And so in a lot of small wineries, just like any sort of think about winemaking as if you would agriculture. There's a lot of accidents in agriculture. Unfortunately, there's accidents that happen in the winery too. So if you think about wine, like an agricultural operation, essentially his niece was helping with the punch down, which is when you take, typically there's a large wooden stick with a firm surface. If you're gonna do a manual punch down, which a lot of these wineries that are featured in the wine club will typically have those manual punch downs. And so when you punch down the cap of the grapes rise to the top of any vessel, and when you do a punch down, it essentially takes the grape clusters and you have to submerge them beneath the surface. And when you do that, a tremendous amount of SO2 comes, you can't see it, you can't smell it, but it will rush to the surface. And if you don't have, if that happens, and I think depending on where the fermentation is, different amounts of SO2, which is a natural byproduct of fermentation, will be released to the surface. But often during those fermentations, the cap at the top of the grape is so thick and there's a lot of juice underneath that when you push it down, and she was young, she was a teenager to my understanding, is she wasn't properly harnessed in. She was doing a punch down, there wasn't anybody there to see her fall in, and so she fell in, and this was a long time ago. And so unfortunately she passed away, and ever since that happened, when I say it was a long time ago, I think it was maybe 10-15 years ago. And so Raul Perez, showing his grief for the death of his niece, just decided to stop shaving. That's where he got the reputation for having a caveman beard. So I know this video is a little bit on the longer side. The wines are amazing. The man is a legend, and I don't want to focus too much on his family tragedy, but it is part of his story, and it is part of the story of the winery, and the wines are delicious. He's such a talented winemaker, and I'm so happy to offer this in my wine club. The Raul Perez Ultreia St is a great example of mencía. If you've never had the varietal, I can't wait for you to try. It is a gem, and it's indigenous to this part of Spain. We're back in Galicia, so if you ever get a chance to go to Green Spain, if you ever get a chance to go to Santiago de Compostela, honestly, it's not terribly far, and what a cool part of the world. Anyways, have a great day.